Dune Awakening has a massive problem. It's PvP. It has to be PvP. It's always PvP, isn't it?
Today we're going to be talking about maybe a glaring issue that players might start facing in Dune here, and an issue that maybe will hopefully get addressed sooner rather than later. Now, the issue I'm talking about is endgame. The entire endgame, that's what we're going to talk about. But I want to talk about a little bit before we get there to kind of lay the foundation on why I think this is going to become an issue. So let's start at the very beginning of the game. When you join the game, you're going to be playing in an area called the Haga Basin. This is the entire map right here, right? This is going to be the area that you explore. You're going to go raid camps. You're going to go do testing sites. You're going to go do all this fun stuff. You're going to build. You're going to explore. You're going to unlock. You're going to have fun with your friends. The entire experience here is an absolute blast. It's such a fun survival game. Now, this is at the front and foremost a survival game. Now,
To be fair, I mean, Dune Awakening probably has one of the best starting experiences for a player to have. It all feels just so fresh, and that it actually matters. Like finally, drinking water is interesting. Dune does a lot of things well, and the start of any of these survival games is typically the best. Honestly, I would say. And it definitely is for Dune. The experience of a sandworm and whatnot, kind of cool.
it is also an MMO type game. So the survival progress is a little slow. It takes a little bit of time. And roughly, in my experience, you're probably going to have about 60 hours into this area before you're ready for the end game, before you're ready for the deep desert. That's why this is a problem.
Yeah, this is kind of what the developers expected. They expected, I think, closer to 100 hours until you build your Orni Boyo. But yeah, close enough.
Now the problem isn't the deep desert itself, it's the lack of options and choices for players that are playing the game. Like I said, you have about 60 to 100 hours in the Haga Basin that you can explore and do everything you want. You can go through and do absolutely everything. You can avoid PvP the entire time if you would like. There are some areas within the map that are PvP that personally I don't think should be PvP. I feel like they should be another PvE area. I don't like it, but it is what it is. You can get around it by going down to
There are so many good games that literally just kind of die because PvP is supposed to be an integral part of it. Throne and Liberty is a great example. The game's still going strong, by the way, but now it's more a dedicated player base than new players joining. And the reason that game succumbed and slowly started to crumble was PvP. No one wants to do PvP. I I think we're past the point where the lead poisoning of the previous generations is affecting us that much and making us extra aggressive. Look it up if you think I'm just being random there, by the way. And now it's like, it's just the plastic in our balls that makes us more docile, so no one really wants to do PvP.
a non-PvP site. There's only one in the game for the green stuff, which is in the starting area, but there is the option there. Now the problem, like I said, starts when you get towards the end game. So you can get all the way up to aluminum to duraluminum, but you cannot touch plastanium because you need two resources that are only found in the deep desert. So why is this a problem, and why do I think the players are going to start having an issue? Because up until this point, the entire game is PvE. 99% of the game right now, 95% of the game
PvP!
is PvE. You do not have to go fight players. You do not have to risk losing your stuff. You do not have to risk losing your time, your effort, your resources that maybe you don't have a whole lot of time to play the game.
Also, you know what's a fundamental problem about PvP? It's not skill, it's none of that shit. Because at the end of the day, PvP, and no amount of skill is going to save you from a 1v10. That's exactly the problem. People with more time get more organized, and they completely dominate through numbers. Yes, this is the big problem with PvP. This is the biggest problem with PvP. You can be bad at PvP, but as long as you have enough time to spend on a game, you can just join some kind of organization, clan, guild, Discord, or whatever that has enough people to just overwhelm your opposition. There's not enough skill in the world that can make a difference here. And that's the hilarious part. And this is why PvP actually kills everything at the end. Because it's not about skill. It's not about cunningness. It's not about anything. It's about numbers. Unless you're EVE Online, that is, where skill actually matters more. But, still, rare.
And maybe it's taking you a long time to get to where you're going. You don't want to risk it. And currently, as it sits, you cannot get to this tier and build this stuff without doing the deep desert, without going into PvP, without being forced to go into PvP. Now, the reason that I think this is an issue, I don't have an issue inherently with PvP whatsoever. I think there should absolutely be PvP options. I think people should be able to play how they
That's a lie, because if you didn't have an issue with PvP, this video wouldn't exist. We all know it's true.
want, and that's the problem. Right now, you cannot play how you want. You have to play the way the game is telling you. You get to this point and you get stopped and you
And by the way, if you think that this is not a problem, that's because you have played the game more than the average player. But there's going to be a point where the average people catch up to you. And when they catch up to you, there's a chance that they're going to now be your opposition. And now you're not going to be the top dog. Now you're going to get just shafted with numbers because the average players who don't have that much time are catching up to you. So if you enjoyed PvP, this maybe the next week or so is going to be where things may start to change because you're no longer the top of the world, baby. The average Joe is catching up to you. And guess what? There's a lot more average people in the world than there's exceptional people, and you're probably not even the exceptional person. You're just the person who has more time and wants to spend more time in the game. So they're just gonna overwhelm you with numbers. That is always what happens in these games.
you get basically slapped with a do not proceed unless you want to PvP. Now, I believe the inherent problem with this, and the reason that this is also not an issue yet, is because a lot of the more casual players that aren't like myself, streamers, YouTubers, and stuff like that we can put all this time into this game, is a lot of people haven't gotten to this point yet. People are dedicating hours upon hours playing a game that they're having a blast with, which I think is great. But it's gonna end once they realize they have to go to the deep desert. They have the possibility to lose everything in order just to get some resources to continue. I do not think it's fair to force PvP onto PvE players, especially when the game is...
To be fair, I mean, it's Dune. That's supposed to be a kind of big and cool thing about PvP, honestly. But, yeah, again, all the problems that I said still persist, and there's other problems. You could make it that you can do it in raids and whatnot, but that would just mean that PvP dies.
99% PvE, when the game is marketed as PvP is always an option. Simply opting out and not being able to play the content of the game is not an option. You are making players...
Well, to be fair, you can actually read that sentence in two ways. PvP is always an option because there's always PvP happening everywhere, and PvP is always an option as in you can opt to do it or not. There's still ways you can read that sentence.
Do that. Now, like I said, a lot of people aren't there yet. A lot of people haven't hit that point. And when they do, that's when it's going to start. It's already started. I've seen a lot of stuff on social medias. I've seen a lot of stuff in Discords. I've seen a lot of stuff on comments and stuff like that. People are already complaining. And the reason for that is because most people...
You know who's complaining? The fucking people who pre-ordered. Because the reality is, a lot of normal people pre-ordered. Idiots. By the way, I hate all of you. Listen. You're the reason why these games are starting to cost $80 fucking default. Because you're gonna buy the pre-order, the deluxe pack, and all of that crap without thinking. Okay? You're part of the problem. I ain't gonna lie, okay? Just deal with it. And amongst the people who pre-ordered the early access on those servers, well, some people still play more and some people still play less. Those are the ones who are complaining because they have an inherent already existing time advantage. So those people are already experienced what the other part of the group, the other huge group of players will soon experience. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
People playing this game are looking for the PvE experience. Most people have 60 hours into the game before realizing, wow, I can't do anything anymore, and unless I want to risk it all, I'm done. and that's it. And it's a really, really crappy feeling trying to build up, trying to do all this stuff just to know that, hey, I can't go any further. Now, I know when I say, oh, I can't go any further, yes, you can. You could go PvP and you could make it further. But that is not the point. The point is you're forcing players to do a PvP. You're forcing players into a situation where they don't want to, where they, in my opinion, you have been fed that this is a PvE game. You have been played the entire time as PvE. But now magically it's PvP. The other problem that I have is the way that the PvP works.
I don't think that's true. I think everyone who bought the game, who wanted to play the game, knew that PvP is going to happen at some point.
So when you spawn into the deep desert, we'll actually go there right now and I'll show you. So this area right here, this is the deep desert. When you enter it, you enter a little area that is safe from, it's not PvP, in this first quadrant for the most part. As soon as you leave these cliffs, it's PvP. So you have this little safe area that basically runs, you know, back and forth. But within that safe area, there is no resources. There's no titanium. There's no higher level resources that you need for the final tier, which I believe a lot of people's understanding was that there was going to be a beginning area that was going to have all of the resources available. So if you didn't want to go out further and do the PvP stuff, you didn't have to. But that is not the case currently. Right now, in order to get any of that higher tier stuff, you have to go out and you have to brave the deep desert against.
And by the way, this is not going to change. You know why? Because the intended end game of this game is actually PvP. It's supposed to be fighting over the end game resources in the PvP areas. So you're not getting away with this. The people who thought that this is a PvP game, I actually have a serious question. Why did you think that? I mean, from the marketing, from the everything that you knew about this game, it was very blatantly, black on white, clear that that's how it's supposed to be. PvP is the end game.
The players. Now, again, I don't have an issue with PvP. What I have an issue with is players that don't want to PvP, solo players that want to go out here, maybe try to get a little titanium, maybe try to get a little stuff, so slowly work on getting that next set of gear. But the second they leave the shelf, they're met with 5-10 ornithopters, rocketed, and they're destroyed and blown out of the sky immediately. That's not fun for the PvE player. That's not fun for the people that just want to casually play a game and have a good time. When we've been playing a game this entire time that has been PvE, when we're told on the Steam page, PvE is always optional, that's where this issue is going to come in. Now, like I said, this area is PvP right here. You can build a base here. This will be, everything here gets destroyed during the storms, which is fine, but there's nothing here. There's no resources here. There's nothing to get. The content that's already in the deep desert looks like an absolute blast. It looks like so much fun. There's giant sandworms. You can fly your carrier ornithopters out there. You can drop your harvesters. You can fight the environment like you have been the entire time. You can fight against the weather, the desert, the heat, the sun, the giant worms, all of that stuff. There's such a good possible PvE experience here, but it's all shadowed and ruined by the fact that at any moment you could lose everything to a.
This is gonna become a more prevalent opinion, and this is gonna split the game. And then we're gonna see what happens.
Large group to a group of people that just want to come in and just blow your stuff up for no reason. That's not fun for the PvE players. Like I said, have a PvP option for sure. I'm not ragging on PvP players. I absolutely get it, but don't make the PvP players can't have fun at the expense of the PvE players, because the PvE players make up the majority of the people playing this game. If you upset the majority of the people playing the game, what's gonna happen? Now, my answer to this, in my immediate quick fix, super quick fix that I think would be an easy quick fix, is if you've never seen this overmap, this is basically how you move from the Haga Basin to the deep desert to the Arkeen town and then Harko village or whatever. This is how you do that. The easiest option that I can see here is, oh look, we have a deep desert west. Easily, deep desert, 3 times resources, PvP. Say it right there. And then simply,
again, the fact that people are already trying to find solutions for this, while there should not be, this is not even a real problem. It's getting wild, boys.
Make another one over here.
And by the way, this is a pretty large YouTuber above everything else. So He shouldn't have any issues in PvP because he should have a Zerg around him that kind of creates issues for everyone else.
Guess what? Deep Desert East, 1x resources, PvE. Let players choose where they want to go. If people feel like they need more resources,
Okay, I have seen this solution, and let me tell you, with a 100% accuracy ratio, exactly how this ends. You introduce the PvP risk factor of 3xing the resources, very cool. And then you have PvE 1x. And the PvP 1x Sandies get pissed because the PvPers are getting 3x their resources, so they feel like they're inherently wasting their time. So now the PvE Andes are demanding that their resources are also for a 3x. See where problems start? And if if the developers succumb to that temptation, then no one does PvP anymore because it's risk without any reward. So PvP now is dead. That's how these things. This is 100% the way that this ends. I have seen it a million times throughout my life.
they need 3x resources or whatever, let them go do the Deep Desert PvP. Let them do that, absolutely. But let players choose what they want to do. They could easily put another thing over here that's a Deep Desert PvE. They don't even have to add any content. They could literally leave it the Deep Desert that's already there and just remove player versus player. You already, like I said, you already have that environmental combat. It already looks like an absolute blast. It already looks like such a good time. People would love it, and it's a super easy fix until they figure out what they want to do later. If they feel like they need more PvP stuff, they can do that later. If they feel like they need more PvE, they can do that later. But this would be, I think, a quick fix to get it fixed right away, so that way you can make the players that are
That would instantaneously again make PvP completely useless. And I mean, PvP is gonna be the big stories on YouTube. It's gonna be the shorts on TikTok. It's gonna be all the rage on Twitch. And on Kick, probably some guy is gonna get arrested for manslaughter. But in any case, without if you remove PvP, you're actually unironically though removing the most legendary aspect of the game. Okay? Who knows any good stories about EVE Online about, I don't know, anything not PvP? Exactly, there are none. Well, there are some, but it's literally like 10 to 1 PvP stories that become legendary and whatnot. And, well, without PvP, you can't have that.
currently playing happy and keep them playing. Because as far as I know, I don't know a whole lot about video games, but as far as I know, this screen right here is basically a fancy screen for me to switch servers. I click on this, it's gonna populate me to a different server. So guess what? Fire up a server and put a Deep Desert East over here. PvE 1x resource. I don't know. Most people haven't even got.
Yeah, again, that's not a solution. Well, at least a solution that doesn't make the game lose players really fast because it becomes boring. And again, I probably should have mentioned this sooner, but the fundamental issue is the fact if the game just becomes boring, that's worse for sustaining player activity than the fact that some people start raging because PvP is a problem. That's also a factor. Anyway, Z1 Gaming, 10 out of 10. Bye.